plaintiff, Frank Salazar, dated the defendant, and he claims one time he picked her up for a date, and she was wearing nothing but a raincoat and her undergarments. Frank is suing his ex for the cost of eye surgery. Defendant Jacqueline Rivera says when she started dating Frank, he swept her off her feet. However, Jacqueline claims she soon discovered that Frank gets violent when he drinks, and he not only verbally abused her, but one time he physically abused her. Jacqueline insists the eye surgery was a gift.
Tell me what happened.
May 2009, Ms. Rivera asked me to co-sign for some LASIK surgery.
Where'd you know her from?
I met her at the hospital where I work. We started dating, and one day she came when we were going out with some eyeglasses, because I never seen her wear eyeglasses. They were the bottle caps. She was real thick. And she started to tell me the story. She started to tell me the story about when she was bullied when she was a child, because she was wearing these bottle cap glasses. And I kind of understood that because I was bullied as a kid, not about glasses, but about just that I couldn't speak English. I was primarily from Puerto Rico. And so she asked me to co-sign for LASIK surgery. And I wasn't sure about it at the time, but
okay.
You know,
before we get into the specifics of the surgery you're suing her about, why don't you give me some background?
First of all, Your Honor, let me just start from the beginning. He worked at a hospital, and I was also a clinical lab technician. And he pursued me because I used to go over there. And I also had a doctor over there that I would visit. And he would pursue me, and we started, you know, we would hang out, but we would hang out at the hospital. I would have to meet with him away from the hospital because, you know, you can't mess around with people, you know, in the workplace. So anyway, we started dating.
What year was that?
And like in 2007, 2008, we started dating back then. And, you know, things were nice. He swept me off my feet, you know. And there was a time period that he wouldn't allow me to go visit him at the house. So we would hang out in the car. And we would do stuff in the car. So then after...
Someone was at his home or something?
No, it wasn't his home because his father lived with him at the time, and he was, you know, he didn't want me to go over there.
Someone else lived there with him.
So we would do stuff in the car, you know. And then after a couple of months...
Stuff like what?
Like, you know, making love, you know.
Making love?
Yeah, having sex in the car. You know.
Was that because you couldn't afford a hotel, or that was more exciting?
You know, it was exciting.
More exciting?
It was exciting, and he also didn't want to take me to a hotel. He would just pick me up in the car, and we would do it. So anyway, after a couple of months, his father stopped living there, so I started to stay with him. And we would have...
How old were you all? Because those were very teenage activities.
Yeah, they were.
You all were teenagers?
No, we weren't teenagers.
Right, how old were you?
I'm 62, Your Honor.
Okay. And she says that you're having sex in the back seat of a car. Got it.
Well, Your Honor, let me say that on our first date, when we actually dated, right? I called her up, I told her I was coming over. When I was downstairs, she lived with her father. I told her I'm downstairs. I said, I don't know what to wear. I said, wear anything.
Oh,
so she comes downstairs, and basically she comes in the car with a raincoat, and I realized that she only had panties and a bra.
You loved every minute of it. You loved every minute of it, baby. Let's keep it real. You loved every minute of it.
I loved every minute of it, Your Honor.
Right? And you still pursued me. It was awesome.
So that, you know, we got a little closer, of course. You know what I mean? But that one thing led to another, and we became an item.
How did you all have sex in the car?
Not often, though. Maybe twice. I don't know.
Oh, twice in total.
Yeah, twice in total.
Okay, she acted as if you all had.
Just, you know, when you start meeting someone, and one thing leads to another.
She spoke as if you all had it regularly until your father moved out or something.
No, Your Honor. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, having sex in the car. You know.
Was that because you couldn't afford a hotel, or that was more exciting?
Yeah, it was exciting.
More exciting?
It was exciting, and he also didn't want to take me to a hotel.
Defendant Jacqueline Rivera dated the plaintiff, and she claims he's a violent drunk who once assaulted her while under the influence.
Go ahead. What other background you want to give? You all dated in 07.
And then when I started staying at the house, you know, things were cool. You know, I had a decent job. You know, at the time I would give him, sometimes I would hand him over my check so he could budget it for me and stuff. And then it got to the point that we would have cocktails in the house, And unfortunately, when he starts drinking, he gets violent. He gets verbally abusive. And there was time that he even got physical with me. There was a time we even went to Puerto Rico. Yeah, we went on trips also, don't get me wrong. I never flown on a plane, but as far as the trips are concerned, I paid those out of my pocket. I would deposit my check into his account and he'd pay for my trip to go and come back. And I would do that all the time. However, we took a trip to Puerto Rico one time and we only stood there 4 hours. He was getting phone calls from DEP. Something happened at his father's property with the water, some damage. So I felt like he was ignoring me because I was in the pool. We both had drinks. I'm knocking on the door to let me in the room. I had to climb through the window. I fell, and then he took out his frustration out on me.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Frank,
Right.
let's keep it real.
That was when?
I don't remember the time
We're
because
going to get to the eye surgery. What year?
I don't remember the year,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Let's get to the eye surgery you're suing
Surgery.
for.
So then in May 2009, she asked me to do her this favor, and I was a little apprehensive about co-signing for someone, but I knew she had a good job, right? She had stopped giving me her check so we could pay our bills, right? And the only reason why I deposited her check in my account because she didn't have a bank account. Right?
How
She
much
couldn't
was
cash
it?
her check.
For the eye surgery.
The amount it was $4,500 for the LASIK surgery, right?
And did she repay any of it?
She gave me receipts, one for $390, which was the monthly
Let me see the
payment.
evidence of what she repaid that you have. Ma'am, we hear from you.
I don't feel I owe him anything
Why?
because I thought it was a gift.
Okay.
I should have to pay that.
He co-signed for you?
Yeah, he did co-sign for
All right,
me.
well, I got news for you. Whenever someone co-signs, they are responsible. You essentially borrowed money from both the institution and from him. Otherwise, he didn't have to put his name down there. So if that's your only defense, then I'm going to grant his judgment. If your only defense is that you don't believe you owe him, then I'm going to grant his judgment because you have no legal defense to him co-signing for you and not paying. $3,694 is your judgment. She agrees that you co-signed for her to get a loan and she defaulted, costing you.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, you get the judgment in
Thank you, Your Honor.
repayment of the loan. Now, the institution is going to come after you, obviously.
Absolutely.
If they haven't already.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to end up paying that money to them.
Yes, sir.
So don't spend it.
Oh, no, absolutely
Judgment
not.
for the plaintiff. Have a good day.
I hope he's happy with what he got. He should be happy. He got his judgment.
Well, I just hope that she's more responsible with taking care of her responsibilities so she can move on. You know, she's a great person. You know, I have no animosity. I just want her to get her life together. You know, not that I have it together, but when you make a commitment, you should stick to it.